Welcome to episode 133 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Major Victories, Major Implications edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Josef. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. We had an interesting weekend of racing around NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One. I think in NASCAR we'll probably lead off with that, but it's definitely, even though it wasn't a throwback designated race, definitely felt like very much a throwback weekend functionally with the way that the race ended there. So we got a lot to talk about. And excited to go over it with you.
Yeah, plenty to go over. Wearing the Mr. the King shirt here, the classic shirt, going over all the different cars he drove. The 43 car goes to victory lane with that Jones boy from Byron, Michigan. The first win for the 43 car at Darlington since 1967. The 200th victory for the number 43 in NASCAR's Premier Division, beating Dennis Hamlin to do so. So that was a huge result. We'll definitely discuss the Southern 500. There was a lot that went on in the race for all the drivers involved in the playoffs. And so that's something we'll have to get into. Noah Gragson gets another victory in the XFinity Series, so the Petty GMS teammates for next year both were victorious, and he beat Sheldon Creed and Kyle Larson in a late race battle. Sheldon Creed tried to Carl Edwards video game it off of the wall in the final lap, and both him and Larson hit the fence on the final lap. Failed in 3 and 4, trying to get himself into the playoffs. So now he only has 2 opportunities left to possibly get his way in. The likes of Jeremy Clements, who got his win encumbered at Daytona, and those other drivers that are trying to get into the playoffs. We'll get into the points for both series. IndyCar saw Scott McLaughlin get his 3rd win of 2022. Penske has won 9 races this year. They've been the dominant force. Though they didn't win Indy, they've won basically everything else, it seems. And the points battle is between 3 guys: Will Power, Josef Newgarden, and Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon going for number 7, Josef Newgarden trying to get number 2, and Will Power number 3, and Will Power trying to get that elusive second championship. Plenty of action going into Laguna Seca this weekend for the season finale in 2022. So the first major series to end will be IndyCar racing here. Max Verstappen gets yet another victory in Formula One. At this point, we're basically looking at how many wins is Max Verstappen going to have this year? Can he break the records of Hamilton, Schumacher? Lewis Hamilton did have a chance yesterday during the race, but strategy did not go in his favor. Some questionable moves by Red Bull vehicles over the entire weekend seemed to play a role, but in the end, Verstappen has been the best car, the best driver, the best team, and everything. And he's going to win the world championship. He's got over a 100-point lead on Charles Leclerc. He's got a 109-point lead. So, and as it stands right now, there's, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 races to go. So he could essentially lock this championship up with a couple of good results here in Italy, and then in a couple weeks' time at Singapore, he could lock the title up at Singapore. So for all those people that thought Formula One was boring when Lewis was winning, this is what happens when it's really boring. No, there was plenty of stuff going on. Ferrari Dick stepped themselves again, and Carlos Sainz had quite a nightmarish race. Hit everything but the lottery, it seemed. We'll get into all that and the midfield runners, along with the points and the recent silly season news that has IndyCar's Colton Herta right in the smack dab in the middle of it. So we'll go and discuss that. The busy roundup, we'll have F2 and F3 at Zandvoort. Monza this week, of course, for Formula 2. They have 2 rounds left in their season. Formula 3's campaign ends at Monza this weekend, so another big championship. MotoGP and Moto2 race at Misano. Pecco Bagnaia gets his fourth consecutive win on his Ducati, and now is only 30 points behind defending world champion Fabio Quartararo on the Yamaha. Carnage-filled Moto2 race. Based on the results, we'll get into that. Two Americans score points. The U.S. Nationals took place earlier today on Monday, on Labor Day Monday. First time in a few years they've been on Labor Day Monday. Big wins for a couple of gentlemen. Big-time championship level drivers all winning in the four major pro categories. Extreme E returns this weekend in Chile for the Copper X Prix. World Endurance Championship will be at Fuji Speedway in Japan, where Toyota is going to try to go and get back up top, try to beat the Alpine team. World Superbikes are at Manicourt. Their season's going to ramp up here over the next few weeks. And Supercars for their last race in New Zealand's Pukekohe Raceway. They'll be racing there. We'll do NFL talk, both for fantasy and in reality, since the season starts on Thursday. Josh's Jacksonville Jaguars have a lot of good momentum, positive vibes going this year, unlike what happened last year. San Francisco 49ers for me, a lot of questions, but a lot of opportunity as well with Trey Lance at the helm going against the Chicago Bears this weekend at Soldier Field. We'll preview and make our picks for Formula One and Monza, IndyCars at Laguna Seca, and NASCAR will have a triple header at Kansas, so there'll be 4 races there. They'll have ARCA too, I figure. And then Josh's sim segment will close the show. So yeah, mentioned that Jones boy getting the victory, his third career Cup Series victory for Eric Jones, 4th total if you count his Bud Shootout win 2 years ago. For Gibbs, he's won now at the Darlington Southern 500 twice in his career. He won the Coke Zero 400 for his first career victory. So, huge victory for Petty GMS Racing. That organization, a non-playoff driver wins in front of 4 playoff drivers. Eric Jones was up in the top 10 all day, but in the end, the last pit stop was the difference. He got out front and took the victory there, led the last 23 laps to earn his 3rd career Cup Series victory, as I said. Denny Hamlin finished 2nd, multiple-time winner at Darlington. Tyler Reddick 3rd, Joey Logano 4th after starting on pole, trying to get the Darlington sweep for both races this year, and Christopher Bell rounds out the top 5. Michael McDowell in 6th, continuing what essentially is the best season of his career. Former Southern 500 winner Brad Keselowski finishes 7th, one of his best runs of the year, led 11 laps. William Byron won stage 1 and finished 8th, so he came out of hibernation, which he's been in since, April. Bubba Wallace finishes 9th in the 45, his first race in the 45 car, helping them out in the owners' points championship battle. And Alex Bowman actually showed that he existed. So that was something. But I guess the bigger story than that, other than those guys that finished up front, or the guys that finished in the back, William Clyde Elliott II had major issues early in the race, broke a right rear toe link, took Chase Briscoe out with him, and in the process, the champion, the regular season champion, the favorite, one of the favorites for this championship, has now lost his huge points gap after finishing dead last and not even being able to make it through the DVP with an extension that they have. Kevin Harvick's car went to flame, and Kevin Harvick's head exploded too, because he basically went off on NASCAR and everybody that's involved with the next gen cars. So that was probably one of the most entertaining parts of the whole race. The Toyotas of Kyle Busch and Martin Truex, which essentially or were two of the dominant cars. They led nearly 200 of their, or just over 200 laps. It looks like, yeah, so 45, yeah, just over 200 of the race's 367 laps, and neither of them finished. Both of them had engine problems. Of course, Truex does not make the playoffs. He's going to finish 17th in the standings, unless they recount it in some way to where Eric Jones might get it because he's won a race or some shit. But I mean, a lot to take in there, Josh. It was a crazy race, crazy weekend at Darlington, and it's flipped the points on its lid going into Kansas this weekend. Uh, right now, Kevin Harvick's in big trouble, along with Chase Briscoe, double-digit points out of the cutoff. Kyle Busch is only 8 points out ahead. Chase Elliott has lost his lead and now is only 14 points above the cutoff. So that after having whatever 20 point lead going in, he lost 34 points in one race, which tells you all you need to know about how it can all switch in one race and why people try to win races in the regular season and win stages. Because if you don't, races like that can happen. You could be really screwed.
Yeah, I mean, this race was definitely a very wild and chaotic race for all of the playoff contenders, mostly. And I think for Chase Elliott, it's a good thing that he won the regular season title and got the bonus, because that 15-point cushion that he had is what's keeping him from being not eliminated right now. That's protecting him. And if it wasn't for that, then we would be talking about Chase Elliott already on the outside looking in, going into Kansas. So that's a major story development here. Shows that nobody's vulnerable or invincible in this. Not even Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson. Although Kyle Larson, beginning of the race when he had his engine issues, thought that'd be it for him. Goes down 3 laps, but somehow manages to get all those laps back and salvages a 12th place finish there, and able to keep ahead in the point standings, ahead of 12th. So he's able to continue on without not as much concern as Chase Elliott, but certainly still his points gap to 12th place is not as great, but still able to salvage the finish there. And then Kevin Harvick, like we talked about, had a issue with the car catching on fire. The pieces of rubber catching on to the rocker panels and then igniting, and then the car ignited on fire. And then you have fire coming into the cockpit of the car and pulled over. And NASCAR took a while for NASCAR to throw the yellow there, but Harvick very, very unhappy, as he should be, and I'm sure Tony Stewart's got the pocketbook lined up ready to pay the fines for him and his crew chief Roddy Childers, both of them going off on Twitter after the race and basically criticizing NASCAR and their next gen car design. So great next gen car. It's a great car according to what they are telling you on the TV, and we've seen great races, but it's certainly there've been a lot of issues with crashing and cars catching on fire. So a lot of issues they're gonna have to look into this season. And then later on in the race, the last caution, Cody Ware hit the wall once again after hitting it earlier in the race, and stops on the track, and Martin Truex Jr. falls out of the race. He'd already given up the lead to Kyle Busch, and engine issues were beginning to plague him. And then he pulls into the garage, and then during the same caution, Kyle Busch's engine started sputtering, and smoke started pouring out of the pipes. So that was a very chaotic scene of events there. And then, of course, that allows Eric Jones to go and take the lead off of that sequence. And from there, I think as long as he stayed up in front and everything, I pretty much knew that Eric Jones is going to win this race. He was basically out in clean air. There's a couple times where the lap cars, lap traffic, Danny Hamlin was able to get up close to him, but you really need to be able to have a lot of drive off of turn 2 and off of turn 4 to really be able to make a pass at Darlington. I think for this car, Darlington and Martinsville really kind of bring out the flaws where basically they need more power or they need more tire wear. So pick one or the other there, I think, and think they'll make it a little bit more interesting as far as lead changes. But then again, Darlington is a very tough track to pass in general, even before this package. So, still a tough track to get around and make things happen. It's definitely very much a driver's track here. But yeah, the chase or the playoffs very volatile throughout most of the field, and I think what it was like 9 out of the 16 eligible drivers right now in the playoffs all had some kind of issue here, and it's going to be interesting as we go into Kansas, which isn't as a wild or chaotic race, and then we have Bristol to end this first round. How things are going to play out and what strategies are going to be taken to either get yourself into the playoffs, like now Kevin Harvick or Chase Briscoe or Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric. They're going to have to figure out how to either point their way in or win their way into the next round, or guys like Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson who now have to stop the bleeding and figure out a way to not keep themselves from falling any further into the elimination zone here as we go over the next 2 weeks here in this playoffs.
Yeah, the pressure is on. I mean, Dylan, we can question his validity of being in the playoff or having any true meaning. What is he adding to the whole procession? He only finished 17th. He wasn't the worst. I mean, the Trackhouse team had issues. Daniel Suarez had to serve a drive-through penalty at the start of the race because they failed inspection multiple times. So they had a horrible night. Kyle Busch, as I mentioned earlier, blowing up, had one of the best cars. And then Austin Cindric. So those are really the people that were affected the most. I mean, the 14 cars had horrendous luck. They've probably made a lot of their bad luck in ways with some of the decisions they made over the season. It's starting to wear on Klossmeyer, it seems. I think he came out on social media and mentioned some things about how it's been. So you could see that it's really wearing on the organization or wearing on them. But a huge win for Petty GMS, for Richard Petty in the 43 car. They're 19th in points, and they've had good runs this year. But to get that victory is huge momentum builder going into next year. So that's something to see. What can we expect from that 43 team with Eric Jones, Dave Ellens? It looks like they're gonna re-up with Eric Jones. The Maury Gallagher has invested in this organization, and in the process, they have brought themselves back into play. So another new organization comes into the Cup Series and wins. You have Trackhouse. Colleague has had their moments this year, but they're there and are in play for Kyle Busch. And then you have Petty GMS, another new organization, going and winning this year. 16, 17 different winners this year in the Cup Series. Is that the number? Am I right on that, or is it 16?
It's 17 winners now, because remember, Kurt Busch not currently driving right now. He was the 15th guy, then Austin Dillon 16th, and now Eric Jones the 17th different winner now.
Cool. I was getting mixed up there on the number, probably because of Kurt. So 17 winners in 27 races, unheard of in the history of NASCAR. And I think there are a couple other guys that are still out there. Martin Truex, of course, being one of them. Ryan Blaney being another. So, and they could both win a race here. It wouldn't be shocking. And it would be good for the organization, or good for them. So it's something we will see as we go along. I mean, the points going into this weekend's race, as mentioned, Joey Logano has a 38-point lead on the cutoff. He has a 6-point lead on William Byron, 8-point lead on Denny Hamlin in third, 10 on Christopher Bell, and 15 on Tyler Reddick. That's your top 5. Ryan Blaney moves up from 16th to 6th. He's 20 points over the cut. Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Clyde, and Bowman are your top 10. Kyle Busch is 11th, plus 8 above the cut line. Daniel Suarez is plus 2 above the cut line in 12th over Austin Cindric. And then in 13th, Austin Dillon is 4 points back of the cut. And so that's 6 back overall. Then the pain really starts at Chase Briscoe, who's minus 10, and Kevin Harvick, who is minus 13 after one race. We'll see what happens at Kansas. Of course, they raced there earlier in the season. In the Xfinity Series, mentioned earlier, or before I actually move forward in the Owners' Points Championship, the only deviation is the 45 car is 10th in the Owners' Points Championship. That's essentially the spot where Blaney would have been if he had actually won in the regular season. He's not involved in the Owners' Points Championship. The 45 is. So the 45 is right now in there by 7 points or 9 points to the good after the run that Bubba had on Sunday. Noah Gragson wins for the 4th time this year, 2nd time at Darlington and 9th of his career. So he's had a career season. It's worked out to where he's going to end up being in the Cup Series next year as well. He is, even with that though, right now with 2 races to go, AJ Allmendinger has a 51-point lead going into Kansas, so he could lock up the regular season title this coming weekend if he has a good run over Ty Gibbs. But all those 4, the Allmendinger, Gibbs, Allgaier, Gragson, are the 4 that really are running up front and have a chance. Allmendinger got another top 5, finishing 3rd. Allgaier finished 4th, and Ty Gibbs finished 6th. So those are the guys. The only 2 people that weren't that aren't in that mix were Sheldon Creed and Kyle Larson, who were the 2 of the 3 guys that are involved in that crazy finish. There wasn't a whole lot that happened. Darlington's one of the shorter races they have all year. There's not a whole lot that's going to take place. If you don't really qualify well, you're going to have a hard time of making it or doing anything. Christopher Bell actually finished 7th in relief of Denny Hamlin, who took the race off, his usual one Xfinity race of the year. He took off because of the after effects of Daytona wreck. Josh Berry 8th, John Hunter Nemechek 9th after getting pile drive by Anthony Alfredo, who was puking and was ill, but then they still let him race. And then Austin Hill finished 10th. In the point standings, Ryan Sieg is now 16 points ahead of Sheldon Creed with 2 races to go for the cutoff. And that's really what the battle is. I mean, Hemrick is pretty much okay to make the playoff as it stands. He has playoff points too. Herbst is the first driver without a win at 8th, and he's had bad luck last week. He had a good race car, but bad luck now. He's only 3 points ahead of Sam Mayer. So really the top 10 are locked in. Castle's kind of in peril, but not really. Ryan Sieg now has a real problem with 2 races to go because Sheldon Creed has got momentum. Josh, I think that's really AJ Allmendinger going and possibly winning the regular season title, giving himself those extra playoff points, which, as we've seen already, can play a huge role whether you stay in the playoffs or not. But we have kind of figured out that Gragson, when he puts his mind to it, he seems to be able to do the job finally. It's been questionable for a lot of his career, his focus or his seriousness, but it seems like this year something has switched for the good, and he seems to be doing a very strong job, and he is a favorite. He's one of the four guys. One of those four guys is going to make it, win the championship in my estimation. I figure I have a hard time believing and that won't be the final four at Phoenix. But Gragson gets the victory. Allmendinger continues to prove why, even though they're lacking pace at college racing, he's done the job to keep them in the mix, and he's trying to get that elusive NASCAR championship in his career. Same for Allgaier. Gibbs, who might be in play and might be moving up the Cup next year, wants that Xfinity title before he moves up too. So interesting between those guys for sure in the Xfinity series. And Sheldon Creed now in recent weeks has all of a sudden inserted himself back into a possibility to make the playoffs, which may have not been a thought possible maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, for Austin, or yeah, for Sheldon Creed, I was about to confuse him with Austin Hill, but he's already in. But Sheldon Creed, his teammate, of course, he's been an interesting season for him, because I feel like, if it weren't for a lot of DNFs that he's had, he probably would have been already into the playoffs already. But now, of course, on the outside looking in, still, but he's got some good tracks, I think, that suit his skill set coming up. I think Kansas for him, I think is a good track. They ran mile and a halves pretty well this year in the 2-car. He's had fairly good results. Las Vegas, Atlanta, of course, super speedway mile and a half, but still a mile and a half. Charlotte ran well there. Nashville, Atlanta, all good places where he's ran well, but just for him, it's just more of a issue of being able to finish races this year. So he's starting to come along here in the Xfinity Series, and I think this race here is proof of that. Running up front at Darlington, and had a shot to get the win there, but Kyle Larson trying to take the win away from him, and to his credit, he said he didn't do anything wrong. But, it's just a product of a hard racing between those two drivers in the final laps, and makes it, exciting for us as fans to watch. Makes the finish interesting, of course, and, then Noah Gragson kind of comes out of nowhere to, be able to win this race, and, Gragson continuing to add to his win totals this year, and, like you said, I think he is taking it, seriously, because I think he knows that he has a chance this year to possibly win this title, and add on to the fact that he's going to Cup next year, and you want to be able to look your best, I guess, as a driver as you continue to finish out this year and move up into Cup. You want to be able to mature as a driver, and I think maybe we're seeing that here, him actually maturing, be able to finish races out, maximize points, and stay alive in the championship. I think for Noah Gragson, I think those are things he's trying to focus on right now, and certainly he's in the right place at the right time with the way that finish played out between Larson and Creed. So I think Gragson probably a real shot to win the title. Of course, things can happen, but I definitely believe he's got a very viable shot here, and I think if Sheldon Creed, if he's able to, I don't know if he'll win the next couple weeks, but I definitely think it's very possible that he could end up pointing his way in. I think it's very possible for him to get top 10s and stage points at both races coming up here. So we'll have to see what happens as they get closer to both these races. And you talked about AJ Allmendinger as well. I mean, obviously, I think he's going to lock up the regular season title, and they'll provide insurance at least for the first round. As we go throughout the Xfinity playoffs, so not too worried about Allmendinger there. But I will say for this race, the way that this race played out, kind of reminiscent of 2003 Darlington Cup race in a way, except the beating bang happened on the backstretch, and on the first two corners rather than in the front stretch coming to the checkered like it did with Craven and Kurt Busch back in 2003. And I guess in this scenario, Gragson is Dave Blaney, because yeah, if it happened on any other part of the track, I think Dave Blaney would have been the winner that day, and this time Noah Gragson the winner. So Darlington always provides a lot of exciting finishes if two drivers are able to get side by side and either beat and bang on against each other, or guy behind them able to take advantage of the victory there. So I think overall this weekend, pretty interesting racing. A lot of things that happened both on the Cup side and on the Xfinity side, and we'll have to see in both series how this race in particular influences the next two races as we wrap up the regular season for Xfinity, and as we go through the first round of the playoffs for the Cup Series.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that here later on with the previews and picks for Kansas. But yeah, it's really those big four. Essentially, 10 spots are locked in, I would say, for the points. Really, it's Landon Castle, Ryan Sieg, who's now in trouble. That's something he was in trouble when Clements won, and he was going to get knocked out of the playoffs, and he was going to put a big issue for Colleague. The encumbered victory saved Ryan Sieg, but instead Sheldon Creed has went on a recent tear, and he's run very. He has 3 top 5s, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you look at some of the other people that he's around, that's essentially par for the course. He has 10 top 10s. Brandon Bruckshot Jones has less top 10s than him. And then the 3 drivers ahead of him have less as well. So, I think Creed, it took him a while to figure it out in the ARCA series, but then he did. In the trucks, it took him a little bit, and he figured it out. This year, it's been the same thing. Everyone thought he was going to be up there with Austin Hill, and Austin Hill's been more consistent. But then you can also add the notion that the Austin Hill 21 team, that team ran all year last year. They're essentially building a new team. Stankiewicz coming with Sheldon Creed from the trucks and GMS. They had to build a whole new team, essentially, with Whelen Engineering as a sponsor. Now they're starting to gel, and they might be gelling at the right time. He'll be very dangerous if he does get into the playoffs, but he needs to make up 16 points in the next 2 weeks or win. And then if he wins, then it becomes a real battle between Sieg and Castle for that last playoff spot. So we'll get into all that in a little while. IndyCars ran at Portland International Raceway for their usual stop now. They had issues with the monitor on the front stretch, delaying practice for a little while. On Friday, they started making memes and the whole bit off of that. But one thing that isn't memeable is Scott McLaughlin being really effing fast. The Thirsty Threes get another victory, the third victory of the season for Scotty McLaughlin. A masterful performance yesterday there, and in his victory in the Grand Prix of Portland, leading 104 of the race's 110 laps. He ends up beating his teammate Will Power by, I guess, what is it, 1 point something. They don't give you the rundown based on time, like by number of seconds back here, but beats Will Power there. Third was Scott Dixon, Paddle Award. Fourth, Graham Rahal started 11th. Graham Rahal. Dixon from 16th to 3rd. Graham Rahal from 11th to 5th after his teammate Christian Lundgaard qualified on the front row. Issues or third and had issues during the day, which left him outside the top 20, but he was really good and really fast. Colton Herta, which we're going to get into in a little bit, finished 6th. Rossi 7th. Josef Newgarden, who went into this race 2 points behind his teammate, lost Will Power, lost a lot of ground, lost 17 points, plus another 2 points in regards, or at least one more, or lost 18 points because of he didn't lose a point because Scott McLaughlin qualified on pole. All right. Callum Ilott gets a top 10 for Juncos Hollander, and Felix Rosenquist finished 10th. The points going after this race, we got to go and bring that up. Will Power leads by 20 over Josef Newgarden and Scott Dixon. That's essentially where the battle lies. Marcus Ericsson is got, 16 and 23, so it's 49 points. So he's basically right on that's the absolute thinnest of chances. Scott McLaughlin, even with his third victory of the year, has been eliminated from championship contention, along with defending series champion Alex Palou and Pato O'Ward. So those guys, Palou and O'Ward, are battling for sixth in points. Herta and Rossi and Rosenquist between eighth and 10th. So that's going to be interesting to see what those guys are able to do. Marcus Ericsson does have the Indy 500 win this year, so he can take solace in that. But he's going to have to battle McLaughlin more than likely for that fourth place in points. But yeah, Josh, it's three drivers in reality left for this championship, as we mentioned earlier. But Scott McLaughlin showed everybody why he might be a big threat next year for this IndyCar championship with a dominating performance at Portland.
Yeah, I think for Scott McLaughlin, going into this year, maybe there were some questions about him, but I think all along, he's a Penske material. He's been a Penske driver through DGR for a while now, and just took a year for him to be able to become an IndyCar driver. Had to go through last year, take his lumps and struggles last year, but this year came right out of the gate and has been fast for the most part this year. The middle of the season was a little bit of a lull, but lately in the last couple of weeks he's been pretty hot in terms of his performance. And now this race, dominated this one very thoroughly. Denies Will Power a chance to potentially clinch or all but clinch the championship title in Portland. So we'll have to see next week. But McLaughlin ran an excellent race, and they, his crew gave him a fast car. His team gave him a fast car this weekend. So I'm really excited to see what McLaughlin brings to the table next season, if he can truly become a championship contender, and show his team that they can go up against Will Power and Scott Dixon head to head. And this is maybe the beginning of the next star in IndyCar. Maybe he begins to rival his teammate Josef Newgarden. Of course, still the future, I think, in IndyCar for Team Penske, and so it's going to be interesting, the dynamic between those two teammates in particular, as we go through the next couple of years of racing in IndyCar, and if they're able to really go head to head and push each other. But I think for the rest of the field, Will Power, like I said, going into the weekend, previously said that I felt like he probably needed to win this race to lock up the title, but finished second in this race, so not quite, and leaves a little bit of the door open for Josef Newgarden if anything happens at Laguna Seca. So I think Will all but won the race, and I think he did what he needed to do ultimately, just didn't win. So I think for Will Power, it's going into next weekend, it's just gonna be a question of if he can pull off the victory or at least get a good finish, because I think this is his title to lose. So we'll see. We'll see what happens going into next week at Laguna Seca. But I think one driver that really kept his championship title hopes alive was Scott Dixon. Of course, going from 16th to 3rd. At this track, pretty impressive. He put on a lot of good moves throughout the race. One in particular, put a move on Rinus VK early on in the race to take position. Then later on, he was able to use the different tire strategy than the rest of the field. He had an alternate strategy. Started off on the primary tires, and then he went to the alternates, and he's able to use that strategy to get himself up into third place. And at the end of the race, had a bit of an issue with Pato O'Ward, and Pato had to let him go. Pato, of course, penalized and had to finish in fourth, and took a little bit of damage as well. So, I think for Dixon, continue to show why he's still one of the greatest in this series, even if he didn't win the race, and he's able to come back from rather poor qualifying effort, go and get a podium and keep his championship hopes alive, at least mathematically. So yeah, I think overall, this is a solid race. Not too much happened in this race. Of course, there's the incident with Jimmy Johnson and Rinus VK. That was the only real major incident of this race. And Connor Daly, I think, had an issue with his car, and he had to retire early from the race. But incident-wise, nothing too much happened. But I think there was some solid racing, especially throughout the field, and throughout the first section of the track, first sector, where there's a lot of passing going on going into the first chicane, and then I think after that first chicane, there was some passes being attempted where there's not a whole lot of room, and then you have that back straight where you can use the draft going into the final section of the track. So overall, I felt like solid racing here at Portland Speedway or Portland International Raceway this past weekend.
Yeah, and I mean that's one battle, the battle between Power, Newgarden, and Dixon for the points championship, the rookie battle. Lundgaard had a great start to the weekend, and the race started well, good qualifying, but he is only 5 points ahead of David Malukas for the Rookie of the Year championship, which has been a tight contest between those two. Malukas probably got robbed for Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. That result was a big one for them. Chevrolet is going to win the Constructors' Championship. So that's the pit stop competition is between the Penske 3 and 12. So that's something. The pole P1 award, of course, Will Power has 4. McLaughlin has 3. He has also 3 wins. So that's a 3-point lead he has on Will Power. But Will Power, of course, wants the big one. The Force for Good challenge was won by Josef Newgarden earlier this year. He won once on each of the 3 types of racetracks, winning just over $1 million for his charity. So that's something for Josef Newgarden, even if the championship doesn't go his way. But we will preview that here in a little bit. The race at the Dutch Grand Prix was pretty straightforward. Or not. I mean, I guess I can't say that it wasn't as straightforward for Max Verstappen, with strategy calls that were made as the race went on. They don't have it on Racing Reference. That's lovely. I wanted a better breakdown of it. But Max Verstappen goes and gets the victory yet again at the Dutch Grand Prix. He has won the last, what is it, five races he's won. The last time he didn't win a race was at the British Grand Prix. He has just go on the Formula One website and save myself the trouble with this. That's not what I want. Formula. There you go. The what is it? The 20 driver standings. Maybe I'll do that. That's what I wanted. It'd be nice if they could just go and break it down and tell you the statistics of who's done what, whatever. Like I want to see how many wins the guy has. I don't want to see But oh well, whatever. He's got a lot of wins. How about that one? He has a 109-point lead now over Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, who are tied for second. Leclerc gets a podium, a rare podium, seemingly, the way that Ferrari does things. In regards to Sergio Perez, he had kind of a iffy weekend, but got a fifth place finish out of it. George Russell, another top five finish. Every race this season, sans one, he's finished in the top five. And that was a British Grand Prix, of course. And he's only 13 points out of second, which would be insane, considering Mercedes has been essentially the third best car all year. For George Russell to possibly get second in the World Championship would be huge, which is something that we have to look at now. That's really the battle we have to look at because Max Verstappen won yesterday, and he was able to pass Lewis Hamilton late. Tire strategy, pitch strategy wasn't the greatest on the 44 side of the garage for Lewis. Ends up finishing in fourth behind Verstappen, Russell, and Leclerc, who had all changed to soft tires during VSC. Sergio Perez finished fifth, Alonso sixth, Lando Norris seventh, Carlos Sainz eighth after he hit everything but the lottery, Esteban Ocon ninth, Lance Stroll rounds out your top 10. There was only two DNFs. Yuki Tsunoda was part of the RG Bargy that went on with the Red Bull team during the whole weekend, and Valtteri Bottas had another mechanical issue for Alfa Romeo. But yeah, so see, we talk about Verstappen. I guess I can do it this way. Yeah, that was his 10th win of the season, his 12th podium, and 4th pole of the year. So, I mean, he's 109 points ahead. As I mentioned earlier, Josh, he could lock up the championship here after the Singapore Grand Prix here later this month. Should be one of the earliest clinches of a world championship ever. But yeah, it's his time, and we're in his world. Even though it's the stupidity of the fans and people who work at the Dutch Grand Prix throwing flares on the racetrack and doing other stupid shit, notwithstanding, and then the abuse for the Red Bull strategy lead strategy person because of the nonsense that went on this weekend. It wasn't her fault, but people are how abusive Formula One has become, and the fandom has become. It's kind of a byproduct of what's wrong with, I guess, the drive to survive aspect of the way they're covering races these days, and maybe why there has to be some reassessment of certain aspects of the sport. But one thing's for sure, Verstappen's going to keep on winning for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen, 10th win of the season, and he's probably on track to have the most wins ever in his season in Formula One, not that far away, and I think likely that it's going to be him taking that record, and likely as the championship. And this race wasn't quite straightforward. I mean, he did win the pole, and he was able to have a good start out front, but then Mercedes had a strategy. They went on a strategy to try to get the winner, at least get a podium, and it looked like it was going to work out. And then, of course, Yuki Tsunoda had an issue, and then they went virtual safety car, and then that allowed Verstappen to make his second pit stop and keep his track position ahead of Mercedes, and then again later, a couple laps later, Valtteri Bottas has an issue at the end of the front straight and parks the car there, and then we see Verstappen go back into the pits yet again and pick up soft tires, and Hamilton stays out, medium tires, and then we see George Russell come back in as well and get more tires. So bit of a split strategy there on the Mercedes end and cost Lewis the race probably there. But at least George Russell gets track position there. Although I think maybe I don't know for the restart for Hamilton, maybe he could have managed the restart better, not given a big draft to Verstappen. But it's all past now, so it'd be hard to say how you play that one out, especially if you're on old tires versus slightly newer tires with Verstappen. So the interesting ending there with Hamilton kind of fading away there at the end, finishing fourth, and with Russell finishing in the podium. So it's gonna be interesting to see. If Mercedes is able to ever pick up a win. I mean, this looked like maybe they had a chance there to pick up a victory, but they blew their opportunity, and I think for both drivers potentially get a win. So it's very hard to say right now with the way Verstappen's been dominating the series. So yeah, I mean Verstappen getting his once again getting a win in his home track and Dutch Grand Prix. So just continue to do what he needs to do to win the championship, and I foresee no other change unless unless they run into some gremlin in the garage or something, and they have a bunch of bad luck the next month or two to reset things. But it's looking like this is his title, this is his world that we're living in, and he's got a 110-point lead over Charles Leclerc. So this is likely going to be Max Verstappen's title here at the end of December once we go through the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at the end of the year.
Yeah, so he's getting his first legitimate victories on a lot of things, and it'll be his first legitimate world championship in the process as well. The Constructors Championship going in, Red Bull trying to win their first Constructors Championship since 2013. They're 111. They have 111 plus 20, 131, 135 on Ferrari. 135-point lead on Ferrari. So that one, it might take a little bit longer. Might take longer than Singapore, but it could be there too. Ferrari is 30 points ahead of Mercedes for second in the constructors. Going into this weekend's Italian Grand Prix, Alpine has got a 14-point lead on McLaren, they've been very consistent. Alpine has only had one race where they haven't scored points, and that was at Imola earlier this year. So they've scored points in every round. That's part of the reason why they're there. Alfa Romeo, ever since Canada, has had a really rough stretch. But they have a 17-point lead on the Haas team, who has a 5-point lead on AlphaTauri. Aston Martin, while small points, they've been gaining here. They've scored in, 8 of the last 9 Grand Prix. So that's an interesting battle to see who can finish 7th, 8th, and 9th in the championship. And then Williams rounds out the back end there in 10th. But points for Alexander Albon, and good performance in recent races. The one thing we should go over before we get into the roundup is the silly season and the fact that Colton Herta, it sounds like, is in play to go to Formula One next year with AlphaTauri, which is an interesting turnaround. It sounds like Red Bull and One-Eyed Marco and Karen Horner seem to want Colton Herta. But some of the same people who didn't want Andretti to get into Formula One are some of the people that don't want. Sorry about that. My phone I thought I had it on vibrate. But yeah, I think Colton Herta is one interesting player. He's had kind of an up and down season. Of course, he had the one big win at Indianapolis road course. But now all of a sudden he's the flavor of the month in Red Bull land. they're looking to put him in a Formula One car because it also sounds like uh, Pierre Gasly is going to go and take over at Alpine. So that is a silly season there, Josh. But the super license point situation is an issue for Colton Herta for now. But when you consider that the likes of Egghead somehow or another was given a exception to get into Formula One, and some of these other people have gotten exceptions to get into Formula One, I don't understand, other than American bias, why Colton Herta wouldn't be eligible. They don't really give value to IndyCar racing relative to some of the other forms of racing in the world. I think um, Super Formula and IndyCar are both at the same level as Formula Two. And so, if you're running good in that series, you win races in that series, that should mean something. It would mean Alex Palou would be in play as well. So, but that's just me. What are your thoughts on the whole Colton Herta and I guess Pierre Gasly being in play here and what it might mean for the Formula One grid? Because we have some other things in play as well for some other rides.
Yeah, I think, for Herta, I mean, it's about time we heard some real news on if he's going to have a drive or not next year in Formula One. And, for a while we thought it would just assumed to be with whatever team Michael Andretti purchased, but now it's looking like Red Bull AlphaTauri is going to give him a seat. And I mean, that's a pretty good ride to be in. It's a car that, a team that can potentially win. We've seen them win before in the last couple of years with, Pierre Gasly winning Monza back in 2020. So it's not far out of the realm for that team to win. And, I think maybe it's a better shot than Michael Andretti purchasing Sauber and using them for Colton Herta's IndyCar or Formula One career. So, and plus, there's always the opportunity of potentially leveling up into, the main Red Bull ride as well if the door opens there. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Colton Herta. I think, of course, like you said, the biggest thing is the issue with his super license, and I think his IndyCar career more than enough proves that he's going to be able to, race in Formula One. Of course, he's already a test driver at McLaren right now, and seems like he's handling that role pretty well, and hasn't really had any issues driving the car. So, I don't think there's any real reason to deny him his super license for Herta. So, like you said, maybe it's a bias against Americans right now, but we'll see what happens. And of course, if he is in Formula One, be the first driver to be in Formula One as an American since his teammate Alexander Rossi. But I think this is a bigger storyline because we've seen Herta's talent, and we've seen what he's able to do. In the fact that like I said, I think the AlphaTauri ride's fairly viable ride. It would be the best performance by an American in Formula One in a very long time. So looking forward to seeing if it what comes out of this. He's able to get a seat in Formula One. So surprised, didn't think that this would opportunity with Red Bull would come about, but if this happens, then yeah, maybe this leads to other drivers from Indy getting into Formula One like Alex Palou, and kind of going back to what IndyCar was in the late 90s, or well, kart was in the late 90s, when you had drivers using that series as a way to level up into Formula One, like Zanardi going from kart IndyCar to Formula One, or Juan Pablo Montoya, going from kart and then later going into Formula One. So maybe we're beginning to see the I guess resumption of that cycle of how drivers progress from series to series. So going to be a very interesting storyline to see how all of this plays out here over the next couple of weeks.
And one thing that plays into that is the fact that, of course, IndyCar ends after this weekend, which opens up the opportunity for Colton Herta to run FP1s for AlphaTauri over the final 6 races of the season, which would give him 6 points towards a super license. And then I think at that point they'd start cutting underhand deals or whatever or he'd end up racing internationally elsewhere, whether I think Toyota Racing Series in Australia, you go and race that deal, and then he'd have 40, and then he'd get in. Um, I think that's the game they would have to do. It would also open up to where Pierre Gasly could go and move to Alpine, which would give two French drivers there. It would essentially leave two spots open for Haas and for Williams, where it looks like Mick Schumacher isn't going to be back next year. And at Haas and then at Williams, we are pretty certain that Nicholas Latifi isn't going to have a ride. And so that kind of leads into what we're doing here in the uh, roundup, going over the results. Formula 2 in race 1 at Zandvoort, Marcus Armstrong won over Clement Novalak and Dennis Hauger over the podium. Lawson, Vips, Awasa, Vashor, Logan Sargent 8th, Jack Doohan 9th, and Felipe Drogovic rounds out the top 10. Only the top 8, of course, scored points in that, so Drogovic gets the top 10, but no points. In the feature race, though, Felipe Drogovic was on pole and wins over Richard Vashor. Awasa rounds out the podium. Hauger, Enzo Fittipaldi, your top 5. Amory Cordial finishes 6th. Somehow Vips, Beckman, Caldwell, Teo Pocher rounds out the top 10. The standings going into Monza this coming weekend. Felipe Drogovic is 63. He's 70 points ahead of Teo Pocher. So as it stands right now, he could lock up the Formula 2 World Championship with a good weekend at Monza. 2 rounds, 4 total races, and have plenty of time to celebrate and possibly angle himself into a Formula 1 ride with the big break that'll be between Italian Grand Prix and, of course, Abu Dhabi in November. Teo Pocher is in second and more than likely going to finish second, even though he's had 2 bad weekends in a row. The recent dry spell, 4 weekends in a row where Logan Sargent has struggled. He's still in third, which is key in regards to him trying to earn super license points. So there's a possibility we could go from 0 Americans to 2 Americans on the Formula One grid next year if Logan Sargent is able to finish high up, finish in the third in the drivers' championship. Williams would probably feel behooved to go and actually give him that opportunity. Jack Doohan, though, there's a big battle, though. Logan Sargent, Jack Doohan, Enzo Fittipaldi, Liam Lawson, and Iwasa, they're only separated. 3rd through 7th is only separated by 16 points. So plenty to play for. 4 total races, 2 rounds to go in the Formula 2 World Championship. In Formula 3, there's only 1 round, 2 races to go after this past weekend at Zandvoort, which saw in race 1 Caio Collet win over Juan Manuel Correa, which was his first podium in Formula 3. A few years ago, of course, he was involved in the accident in Formula 2 that took, I'm forgetting the name of the driver who passed away. He was close friends with Pierre Gasly and Charles Leclerc. But and at Spa, the big accident there, and Juan Manuel Correa had huge injuries. So for him to come back, finish on the podium here, it's a big deal for himself. ART. Zach O'Sullivan, another Williams development driver, finishes 3rd. Johnny Edgar 4th, and Gregoire Saucy 5th. Ajar 6th, Martin 7th, the 2 guys that are battling for the championship. Sebastian Montoya making his Formula 3 debut, finishes 8th, scores 3 points in the sprint race. finishes ahead of Jack Crawford, the American Red Bull development driver, and Roman Stanek rounds out the top 10. In race 2, Zane Maloney from Barbados gets his second consecutive feature race victory over Victor Martins, Franco Colapinto, Stanek, Hadjar, Crawford, Collette, Montoya, Edgar, and Bierman round out your top 10. So with a one round, 2 races to go, Victor Martins is 5 points ahead of Isaac Hadjar, 17 points to Roman Stanek in third. Oliver Bierman is 20 points back in fourth. And Zane Maloney is in fifth. So the battle from third through sixth with Arthur Leclerc is separated by 8 points. So that's a side battle. But Martins versus Hadjar, one of those two more than likely will be Formula 3 world champion and get their probably rise up into Formula 2 next year. So that'll be something to see. MotoGP and Moto2 raced at Misano. Marco Simoncelli circuit, which saw Pecco Bagnaia beat his future Ducati factory teammate Enea Bastianini by 0.03 of a second there at the line. Maverick Vinales on the Aprilia fourth, Luca Marini third, Luca Marini fourth, Fabio Quartararo fifth, Alicia Spargo sixth, Alex Rins seventh, Brad Binder eighth, Jorge Martin ninth, and Alex Marquez rounds out the top 10 on a Honda. That's interesting. The standings going into the next race is now 30 points. Pecco Bagnaia is behind Fabio Quartararo. Alicia Spargo is 33 points behind Fabio Quartararo. So now there's 3 riders in this battle for the World Championship. There's still 6 rounds to go in the World Championship there. Enea Bastianini is fourth. Johan Zarco crashed on lap 1, so that was a big loss for him. So now the points are a little tighter. Jack Miller's back in play. Binder there. Vinales with the podium, his now third podium in his last 4 races, has moved himself into 8th in points, tied with Alex Rins. So, and Jorge Martin rounds out the top 10. Toyota Prius models were yet to know on successor for the 300 because they're in the GT300 category. But interesting. Oh well. But going into the NHRA's U.S. Nationals that finished today, was a very competitive, very interesting day, to say the least. Big victories, the 100th victory for Greg Anderson in Pro Stock of his career, joining John Force as 3 triple-digit winners in regards to pro categories. There's other guys that have won over 100 and ladies won over 100 races. So that was a big one. Ron Capps finally wins the U.S. Nationals after winning the All-Star Call-Out. On Sunday, he wins the U.S. Nationals for the first time in his career. So that was a big one for him. In Pro Stock Motorcycle, Matt Smith wins over Karen Stouffer, who had issues on her run. So ran a 687 at 195.99. Third Indianapolis win. Third win of the year as well. So great day for him. Sets himself up very good for the playoff. In regards to Pro Stock, as I mentioned, Greg Anderson wins, beats his teammate Dallas Glenn, who red lit, ran 680.58 with a 7 at 0.07 miles an hour, and wins his 100th career Pro Stock race, 7th U.S. Nationals win, first win of 2022 for the defending Pro Stock champion. And I mentioned Ron Capps. He beat Robert Hight, who ended up having issues on his run. Ron Capps finally wins. The first time ever higher qualified. All of the higher qualified cars won in the funny car class. Yeah. Third win of the year with 2 runner-ups. Yeah, so big win for Ron Capps. Big weekend for him. Antron Brown gets his second win, or his 4th U.S. National, 2nd in Top Fuel, 2 in Pro Stock Motorcycle, 70th career win for him, 71 for Ron Capps, they mentioned. So big championship, the big time championship drivers all won. And then the call out, Steve Torrence won the call out. So that's the case right there. I'm trying to. You'd think they'd have announced the points there. So I'm going to get into the unofficial point standings, which sees official points will be posted here once they change. Okay. So now the top 10 in points are, so the 10 drivers that made it, and they didn't zero them out over here, but Torrance is leading. That's from last year, so that's not okay. So Brittany Force is the points leader over Mike Salinas, Justin Ashley, and Steve Torrance. Josh Hart 5th, Antron Brown, Leah Pruitt, Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, and Tony Schumacher, who had to struggle to make the field after winning at Indianapolis as many times as he has. It looks like 12 drivers will make the countdown. Clay Millican showing being the latest addition to Rick Ware Racing's racing empire, leaving me to question where the hell does Rick Ware have all this money. In Funny Car, there will be at least, I think, 12 drivers in that field. Height leads over on Capps, Matt Hagan, Bob Tasca, and John Force. J.R. Todd, Alexis DeJoyer, Cruz Pendragon, Tim Wilkerson, Blake Alexander round out the top 10, but then you have Chad Green and Jim Campbell. Then in Pro Stock, Eric Enders leads over Aaron Stanfield, Greg Anderson, Kyle Koretsky, Dallas Glenn, Troy Coughlin Jr., Mason McGahey, Camry Caruso, Matt Hartford, Fernando Quadro Jr. on a top 5 or top 10, but 15 drivers are actually eligible for the playoff. Bo Butner, Derek Kramer, Christian Quadro, Chris McGahey, Fernando Quadro. And then Maynard Family Racing. What is that? So that's the joined. So instead of it being Don Schumacher Racing, now they're the Maynard Family Racing team. So that's interesting. Sure, JCM crew chief Todd Okuhara and Mark Denner. Blah 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 blah. Phil Schuler has been there before for the for Tony Schumacher in the past, so that's not shocking. I think there's only 10 in the Pro Stock Motorcycle. Matt Smith ends up taking the points lead going into the countdown by 28 over Joey Gladstone. Steve Johnson, Angel Sampey are within 100 points. It will be even closer with the start of the countdown. Eddie Krawick, Karen Stouffer, Angie Smith, Jerry Savoy were your top 8. I think, Mark Ingerson and Ryan Ayler will be your top 10. I think they'll only have 10 that make the playoff, but I will check in on that when they race their next race. Here, the first race of the playoff, which will be at the Pep Boys NHRA Nationals at Maple Grove in a couple weeks' time. So we'll see where the points are when that happens. They'll run back-to-back race. They'll run 3 races in a row. They'll run at Maple Grove, then Charlotte, and Gateway. Then they'll take a couple weeks off before Dallas, and then there'll be gaps for the final 3 races of the year. They also announced the 2023 NHRA schedule, which now will start at Gainesville instead of Pomona. They'll wait till early March to start at Gainesville. I guess they wanted to condense the calendar a little bit. Then they'll run for the final time at in Phoenix and Arizona Nationals. Then the Winter Nationals at Pomona, which really is on the edge of spring, so I don't know how you can call it the Winter Nationals at that point. 2 4-wide events in the month of April, 1 race in the month of May in Chicago, Route 66 Nationals. Then the schedule will start picking up a little bit. 3 races in the month of June. Then the Western Swing in July. August, we'll see Heartland Park, Topeka, Brainerd, and then late August, early September, of course, is the U.S. Nationals. And then essentially the same schedule as they've had this year. So they've tried to condense the schedule a little bit, but maybe they could do it a little more. Going into Extreme E in Chile, we have I think the Rosberg team continues to lead that deal there. Why the heck did I said copy? And then there you go. They lead the championship going into the race weekend this coming weekend. They come off of winning the was that the run? Yeah, they come off winning the previous race, the Island X Prix. The second Island X Prix, and then over the X44 Lewis Hamilton team, and then the Andretti Autosport team finished third. The championship standings, they're up by 32 points on the Ganassi group so that's Sarah Price and Kyle LeDuc. They have that battle is really close between themselves, the Spanish duo of Sands and Sainz, and then the X44 team. They're all separated by 2 points. So big race weekend here, the next to last race of their season. So a huge weekend to see what they can do, and if the Ganassi team can get a result there to solidify themselves in second in this championship. WEC at Fuji Speedway, as I mentioned earlier. The standings going into this weekend's race sees the Alpine trio of Negrão, Lapierre, and Vexvier lead by 3 points over the Toyota trio of Buemi, Hartley, and Rio Hirakawa. Olivier Pla and Romain Dumas are in third, running. I think they run for the the Glickenhaus effort. Yeah, they're running in the Glickenhaus team. And then former champions Conway, Kobayashi, and Lopez in the Toyota are in fourth, but they're 20 points back. They're gonna definitely need a major result here this race to stay in it going into the last race of the season. For LMP2 teams, the Jota Sport team is leading by 11 points over United Autosport. Then the Prema Orlean team is 17 points back. GT Am sees the TF Sport team, which is Aston Martin team, lead the Northwest AMR team by 8 points. So that's the main battle there. Toyota leads in the Hypercar Teams Championship by 21 points over Alpine. GT manufacturers, Porsche leads by 26 over Ferrari. And LMP2 drivers, championship Roberto Gonzalez, Antonio Felix da Costa, and Will Stevens lead by 11 points over Oliver Jarvis and Josh Pearson. And then Robert Kubica, Louis Delatras, and Lorenzo Colombo in third. So it matches, of course, the team's championship. GTM Drivers Trophy, Ben Keating and Marco Sorensen lead over Paul Dall'Anna and David Pittard, and Nicky Team. So that's the same as, of course, the teams. So a chance for American to win with Ben Keating and the GTM drivers. And then the GT drivers, Cup, Jimmy Bruni and Richard Leitz lead by 3 points over Michael Christensen and Kevin Estra. So the Porsche duo leading the championship there. Alexander Perguidi and James Colato for Ferrari is in third. That's 5 points between those three combinations. So something to look at this coming weekend at Fuji Speedway. World Superbikes are back this coming weekend at Manicourt for their first race in a little bit. They've been off, but they're going to run. They're going to start getting a little busier here now. They've been off since the end of July. After this weekend, they'll run 2 races. There's 2 races this month. They'll race in Barcelona later this month. 2 races in October, and then 2 races in November to finish their season out. The standings coming into this race see Alvaro Bautista up by 31 points on Johnny Ray. Yeah, 31 points on Johnny Ray, and 38 points on Toprak Raskadlioku. Andrea Locatelli and Michael Ruben Rinaldi round out your top 5. Iker Lacuona on the Honda is just outside the top 5 there. He's only 7 points out. Garrett Gerloff is in 12th right now in points with 55, trying to go, and he's best point score so far this year is 14 through they do 3 different points scoring races, so trying to improve on that. If he can do that, he can give himself a chance to get into the top 10 in points. Javi Vieje on the other Honda is in 10th. The supercars will race at Pukekohe for the last time. And Scott, of course, we've talked about it for a while here. Scott McLaughlin, of course, moving to IndyCar definitely opened a big door for Shane Van Gisbergen, who was already a former champion of the series, and drove for the Red Bull AAA team. But he is definitely the guy. He won last year, won Bathurst. And after this weekend at Pukekohe, they're going to run. The next race will be the Bathurst 1000, the great race. They'll run at Surfers Paradise again, and then they'll run Adelaide for the final race, and before they become the first race again for the Clipsal 5, what used to be the Clipsal 500. Anton De Pasquale and Will Davison for the Dick Johnson Racing Team are second and third, but they're a couple hundred points behind. About 250 points out was Will Davison, and 200, about 25 or so out Anton De Pasquale. Cam Waters, Chaz Mostert round out your top 10. Brock Feeney, Van Gisbergen's teammate, is 6th. Those are really the guys. Reynolds, Courtney, Kostecki, Brody Kostecki, Tim Slade round out the top 10. Now we'll get into all that next week. All right, Josh, so now we'll talk some football. Season preview here for the NFL. Plenty of talking points. Everyone's been talking. We've had some time. But Thursday starts the season on NBC. The Buffalo Bills will go to LA to SoFi Stadium to play the defending Super Bowl champion LA Rams. And it'll be the first game for Mike Tirico calling for NBC, taking over for the great Al Michaels. The following week will be on Thursday night, will be on Amazon Prime, which will be the Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers of Anaheim and Alameda and all other residing counties, and then versus the Kansas City Chiefs on Amazon Prime. But I mean, there's plenty of good football, plenty of good players. I had a fantasy draft that I didn't get graded on very well, but I don't really care. In regards to regular football, though, what are you looking for from your team, and what do you look for? I guess we can make some picks in regards to Super Bowl picks as well. So, what are you looking for in regards to that?
Well, I mean, I think for the Jaguars, I think the biggest question and biggest thing we're looking at is Trevor Lawrence's progression from last year and what's he going to look like in regular season form. So far preseason looked like he was, progressing well, and he had some good highlights in the two preseason games he played in. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he was going to do on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. In Washington. So it's going to be interesting with different weapons now. He's got Marvin Jones coming back from last year and lost Laviska Shenault in a trade earlier, but he was able to get Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and you have some rookie wide receivers, I think, that made the team. Evan Ingram coming from the Giants, and then, of course, teammate Travis Etienne coming back after injury last year, and then James Robinson going to be coming back from his Achilles injury, which he did come back, or it looks like he's going to come back from, and he's going to have playing time. I'm not sure if he's going to start the game, but he is going to play for sure on Sunday. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Jaguars' offense is. I'm confident in the defense and their ability to stop the ball for the other team, but I'm very, very much interested in how Trevor plays this year. So, I think for the Jaguars, I think it'd be a good season if they get 7 to 8 wins, and potentially be a contender for a wild card spot. I think that would be a good season for them if they are able to do that. If not, hopefully it's they're able to still be competitive and be competitive in games and be in contention like they haven't been in a while since 2017, being able to dictate outcomes of games with the way that they play. That's kind of what I'm looking for there. So we'll see what happens. Of course, defensively, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd, very excited to see how they play. Tyson Campbell as well. I think he's a good offensive or defensive player on the back end. Really excited to see how he plays along with Andre Cisco as well. Another promising young player on this team. So, there's a lot of up and up for the Jaguars right now. You just got to be able to capitalize on the opportunities. So, ready to see them play in week 1. And then they come back to Jacksonville week 2 to play against the Colts, and we'll see if they can extend their winning streak against the Colts in Jacksonville, going for I think 7 in a row now against the Colts in Jacksonville. So we'll see if they're able to pull it out there, and then we'll go throughout the season from then. So I think for Super Bowl picks, I feel like it's too early to tell, but I feel like on the safe end, I think the Chiefs are probably going to have a rebound year going back to the Super Bowl. In 2021, they missed out on going to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime, but I think they'll be able to bounce back from that loss and go back to the Super Bowl. NFC side, I have a hard time believing Tom Brady making it back to the NFC Championship game. I think at best they'll be in the wild card round. I really believe it's time's going to finally come for Tom Brady, and everybody's going to be saying, well, he should have retired, after last year. So we'll see what happens there. NFC side, it's a little harder to say. I'm gonna just say that. Trying to think about the teams. I think it's gonna be probably between the Rams and the Packers this year. Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford. We'll see. How those teams are able to respond. Rodgers didn't didn't have as much success in the playoffs as what he needed, going up against the San Francisco 49ers. But the Rams, the reigning champions, we'll see what happens. I think they're going to continue to carry the success that they had last year defensively. Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. Then on offensively, they added Allen Robinson, so he's finally gonna have a good quarterback after almost a decade of playing in the NFL. And then Matthew Stafford, a little bit of questions with his elbow injury, but I think Sean McVay is gonna be able to game plan around that. So I think probably gonna be Chiefs and the Rams, which should be an exciting game to watch offensively if it ends up being like that here for the Super Bowl. So wait and see, but it's going to be exciting for the NFL. And then one more note on that: college has already started this past weekend, and University of Florida came out and beat Utah Utes 29-26 on Saturday night. It was a pretty good, entertaining game. Gators won last minute.
Pac-12 champions and the winners of the Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah, that's you. So the Gators beat them. Had a goal line stand. Had a couple goal line stands throughout the game. And then a final interception to clinch the game for the Gators. So, very excited to see how the Gators play this year under their new coach. And I think they're gonna have a lot of energy. Was really encouraged by Anthony Richardson's play. I thought he was very very mechanical in the pocket. He had a lot of good accuracy, very good throwing mechanics, and then he's still able to take off and run when he needed to. So he had that 145-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. So very very excited to see how the Gators play this year under the new coach. So wanted to bring that up as well because I definitely think they're going to have a chance to possibly be in the rankings. I mean, they're unranked right now, but I think after this game, they'll probably be back in the rankings, and then we'll go from there. So, very excited to see how UF plays this year, and the rest of college is going to be interesting. I think with all the other teams, and of course, Clemson, Alabama, the two powerhouses. We'll see how they play throughout the rest of this year.
Yeah, that was a big one. Rutgers. Squeaked out a victory against Boston College there to start their season on the road. So that was a big win for cocksucker Shiano and company. Pittsburgh won the backyard brawl late there and over West Virginia, which tortures Pat McAfee and all, amongst others. I mean, of course, Alabama won in a throwaway game, 21-10 for Ohio State over Notre Dame. So Notre Dame gonna have to fade that. Oregon takes a huge loss. It was a bad weekend for the Pac-12. Florida beating Utah is bad for the Pac-12. Oregon getting killed by Georgia. That's a big one. Oklahoma won big in a rollover. So did Michigan, Baylor, rollover. North Carolina State sweats East Carolina in part because of missed extra point. USC rolls. Miami destroys. Wisconsin destruction. Tight battle between Arkansas and Cincinnati sees Cincinnati take the L. Kentucky wins Ole Miss. Houston in 3 overtimes against Texas, San Antonio. Probably means they're going to drop out of the top 25. And BYU amongst the current top 25 teams right now, those are the results. But yeah, I wanted to mention Rutgers. I mean, in the American, yeah, the Cincinnati goes and loses. They lost. Houston wins. Both of them were ranked, so Cincinnati will probably fall out of the top 25. In the ACC, Florida State now is 2-0 after they beat LSU. Um, and Brian Kelly, who faked a Southern accent, now is trying to fake being a really good coach. NC State and Wake Forest are still up there. Clemson's going to show up for the first time starting this week. I mentioned Boston College lost to Rutgers. North Carolina's 2-0 as well, so they'll probably get into the top 25 along with they have Miami and Pittsburgh in there. Big 12 had a great weekend. All their teams, their Big 12, which is 10 teams. Yeah, is it? Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Big 12, which is 10 teams. 9 of their teams won. And then the Big 10, which is 12 teams. What is it? It looks like the 11 of the 12 teams have won at least one game so far this year. Purdue's the only one that hasn't. They lost last week. Nebraska recovered after they're getting anally annihilated in Ireland. They recovered for a win. Some of the other people, I'm trying to look for. Oh, I didn't know there was that many independents. Jesus. There's 7 independent teams. Okay. BYU, Liberty, fuck them. UConn. I thought they were in the Big East or whatever they're in. Yeah, 'cause there's like 856 teams in college football Division One. Yeah, Boise State lost. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Vanderbilt's 2-0, so credit to them early in the season. So might have a chance there. Georgia, Kentucky, and of course Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. The SEC West is really, really tough. You have 4 ranked teams there, so good luck trying to get out of the SEC West when Alabama's just staring at you. For sure. For me, when it comes to pro football, 49ers are there, and there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of thoughts in regards to how the San Francisco 49ers have handled their roster, in large part with Trey Lance being the starter, but then bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back on a team friendly deal to be the highest paid backup in the NFL. Based on the top 100 rankings, the Niners have one of the best teams in the NFL. 7 of the top 100 players in the NFL are San Francisco 49ers. Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward, and Kyle Juszczyk. 7 49ers in the top 100, which is insane to think. Prior to the Shanahan-Lynch regime taking over, to think that the Niners would have a roster that was so good that the NFL, that the players believe that there's 7 of the best 100 players are on a roster. They're, of course, coming off of an NFC Championship appearance against the LA Rams. Probably should have been against Tampa Bay, but whatever. Probably still would have lost. But, I mean, in the team roster, I thought they could go. Where do we go and bring up the depth chart? I need a depth chart here. That's what we need to do. Oh, God. But, the 49ers. Yeah, there's depth chart 2022. That's exactly what I want to see. We'll go on our lads. Yeah, I mean, the big deal is the fact that Trey Lance is the starter. Jimmy Garoppolo will be the backup, and then Brock Purdy makes the roster, and he's a rookie. So that'll be at the quarterback position. What is Trey Lance going to do? What can he do? Uh, is he able to lead this team? He's going to have some rough. He's going to have some rough patches. He's going to have some moments where people are going to wonder, is he ready? But I'm not concerned about that. I believe in him. There's a reason why he was drafted 3 overall. There's a reason why Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch hedged and gave up a lot to put themselves in a position to get him. This team is ready to go. Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in the NFL, bar none. You want to watch if you want to watch something that'll motivate you, watch his documentary talking about his return, just his life prior to getting the NFL and what he had to deal with, and then the cancer diagnosis and everything that went on with that, being able to get the surgery, come back, and end up signing with the San Francisco 49ers and just have a resurgence and become and continue to be the best offensive lineman in the league. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels, one of the best common wide receiver combos in the league. Jawan Jennings really stood out as a slot last year. The offensive line is going to be interesting. McGlinchey has to play better. If he doesn't, it's going to be a big problem. Spencer Buford is a rookie. He'll be starting at right guard. Jake Brendel is taking over at center. So there'll be pressure on him. Aaron Banks, after getting drafted last year, is going to be starting at left guard. So he's going to have the security blanket of being next to Trent Williams. Of course, I forget who the hell it was that was next to Trent Williams, and he just got broke off in free agency. Elijah Mitchell is going to start the year as the starting running back. Had a great year last year. Jeff Wilson initially will be the backup. Tyrion Davis Price and Jordan Mason, who made it in after a great preseason, will be the running back by committee in a sense. George Kittle, one of the best people in the league, one of my favorite players, period. If he can have a healthy year and be the safety blanket, one of the big safety blankets along with Kyle Juszczyk, could really help Trey Lance in this offense. Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa will make up one of the fiercest defensive lines. Javon Kinlaw is motivated as hell to show everybody that he can play, and he looks great. Armstead, one of the best, better defensive tackles in the league. Essentially, it was like bust category, but it's become better. Nick Bosa is a freak of nature. The linebacker duo of Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner is one of the leaders of this organization. One of the best. And then the secondary is much improved. You have they signed Shavarius Ward from Kansas City, and they have E-Man there with Demondre Lenore, Ambry Thomas. The cornerbacks are better. Tavarius Moore and Talanoa Hufanga gives me kind of vibes of like light Troy Polamalu. He hits really hard. So the secondary is something people are questioning, but I think they're going to be a good unit there. If Kinlaw can come back and really make some plays, I think Drake Jackson is going to play and be a big part of what get into the starting rotation soon enough. And he is a freak of nature too. So you put Bosa and Jackson out there with Armstead and Kinlaw. Good luck. We still have an issue at punter. Wisnowski sucks, but Robbie Gould is one of the best. Ray McLeod is a great kick returner. So that's not as big of a deal. We're actually in good shape there. Ayuk hopefully doesn't have to be called in to do returning punt returns. Jimmy Ward is injured for the moment. He's on injured reserve. Jason Verrett's on PUP. So those are two guys that would help in the secondary. Other than that, trying to look at, got some wide receivers on the practice squad. Tomoko Toure, Tayshawn Gibson, another safety. Jason Poe, a guard who has some talent. So, I mean, the Niners are going to be up there. They're going to have a chance this year, for sure. I hope so for my own heart and for my own health, because I just want them to win a Super Bowl. It's the only thing I've got left, really. The Avalanche came through. I have the picture over there. I have the blurred screen, but I have the picture and I have the hockey puck. I have the hockey puck right there showing that. I want my teams or drivers to win. Everybody wants that, but I know I'm not going to see a World Series anytime soon for baseball, even though my team or my favorite player is a beast. I know that basketball is never going to happen, but I love football. So my fantasy teams, my team in my league, I think is pretty competitive. I think our league is going to be awesome this year. Very tough. The league I drafted in today, I don't know so much how good it's going to be, but I'm going to compete. I'm going to compete every week, no matter what. The keeper league team that I have with Vic is a tough team as well on sleeper. And we have Joe Burrow as our quarterback, and we have Jonathan Taylor, Deebo Samuel as well. We got Dallas Goddard and what's his name? Damian Pierce. What does that say? No longer competing with Mac. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because they cut him. Stafford's our flex quarterback. We have Trevor Lawrence, who we kept. We're very Jacksonville heavy, so Josh would be happy about that. We have James Robinson and Travis Etienne as well.
That's a
on our
good deal
roster.
there.
Tyler Boyd, Isaiah McKenzie, and Garrett Wilson, the top 10 pick for the New York Jets. So we have that going on. So that team, I think, is pretty competitive. We have a good chance this year. We had a rough year last year in that league, but I think we have a chance. Free team. I'm not gonna. That was 3 hours ago. The other team I drafted today got a C grade, but I don't really agree with that. I do have it's a standard, more of a standard team. I drafted pretty solid, honestly. It's not pretty, but I drafted solid. It was a 12-team league. I have Dak and I have Aaron as my quarterbacks, and I have might as well bring it up. I have Cooper Kupp. I was my number one pick. And I was sixth pick. I have Cooper Kupp and T. Higgins as my wide receivers. My running backs are kind of weak. DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery. But I think there is potential there in Chicago, and I have Damian Pierce. Dallas Goddard is my tight end. I have Hollywood Brown. I'm going to try to move Darrell Henderson through waivers. That was kind of a panic pick. And I have Drake London, the Atlanta first-round draft pick wide receiver with Marcus Mariota. Since Kyle Pitts is really the only person he has to compete with for catches. They didn't give me a great grade, but I have some solid players there. It's a deep league. It's a league I've been in a lot. My championship trophy is over there to my right shoulder, and I've won that league twice, so I hold it in high regard. Though I would rather win my league again and put and adjust my name tag on said belt with another championship to become sixth time, I think, in that sense. All right, so let's go and make some. Well, I didn't make my Super Bowl picks. So my Super Bowl picks, and it's not because of bias, because my one of my good friends who also is in this league, uh, it's his team, but I do believe in the Buffalo Bills. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I have to work on my boomer. But the Buffalo Bills, I think, are going to make the Super Bowl. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Josh Allen probably is going to be the MVP. Could probably give Professor J a stroke if all of those things happen. But at least he'll be able to go, at least he'll be able to go out with his team winning a Super Bowl. I think Buffalo wins the Super Bowl, and the team that makes the Super Bowl. You brought them up, Josh, during your picks. You said the Rams and the Green Bay Packers. Well, I say the Green Bay Packers make the Super Bowl in Arizona, and Aaron falls short in this Super Bowl. He's won one, hasn't been back since. He'll fall short this time. The ayahuasca will not be enough for him to get through. He did the ayahuasca. He didn't want to describe when he was shitting and farting to Pat McAfee. I'm sure he was doing that. If it was on the Stern Show, he really would have told everybody that he shit and fart at the same time and pissed himself. It would have been great. But he'll get to the Super Bowl and he'll watch the next generation of the NFL go and beat him. They beat him on the golf course, but he ain't going to beat Josh Allen on the football field in this spot. Buffalo Bills, Green Bay Packers, Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills getting the victory. All right, so Formula One, this will be easy. Italian Grand Prix preview. I think it's going to be an auto pick for the rest of this season, unless Max Verstappen doesn't show up. I'm just going to say Max Verstappen's going to win. I'm just gonna for the rest of the year.
Yeah, me
I
too.
really, yeah. So we don't even like. I don't even think we need. I think what we should do is like, okay, who do we think is going to finish on the podium behind them, and who will qualify on pole? Which there is a little bit more of a battle because Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc 7 poles. You've had four guys that have qualified, 5 guys that have qualified on poles because George Russell also got one. So there's a little bit more competition on Saturdays. But yeah, Max Verstappen's going to win. I'm thinking, I said it on the Grid Talk earlier today for the race preview. I said Charlie Leclerc finishes second and George Russell finishes third. Of course, I'd want to see Lewis win the pole and the whole bit, but I'm not going to go there. I already know things aren't as good for him. So those were my picks. I figure Max wins the pole because they got the fastest car.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you there on, what we said, Max Verstappen. Obviously, I think wins the race for the pole. I'm gonna go with a little Ferrari home cooking, I guess, their home Grand Prix. I think maybe Charles Leclerc takes the pole, gives them a little hope, and then Ferrari again makes another mistake and embarrasses themselves in the race. And I mean, maybe they don't cost themselves because by that point Max will have already taken the lead, but they may screw themselves out of a podium with one of their drivers once again. But I'll take in qualifying. We'll go with Charles Leclerc winning the pole. I think for the race itself, second place, I'll go with Lewis Hamilton finishing in second in the little bit of a rebound after this past week at Dutch Grand Prix, but I think maybe he comes in second and takes home a podium finish. Third, go with go with Checo Perez in third. I think that's a solid pick. So Red Bull Mercedes sandwich there for the Formula One Italian Grand Prix.
No faith in the race because of Ferrari's strategy. I give you credit for going there, especially considering that Checo Perez in recent races has basically lost the plot in large part because Red Bull doesn't care about him, and they put the different floor on his car, which has made the car more unstable. And they've kept on telling him he has to use it, even though it's not competitive, and they won't put it on Max's car. If it was such a great idea, put it on Max's car. The guy's going to win the world championship anyway. Let Checo run the car that he needs to feel most comfortable with so he can finish second in the world championship. Because you're going to win the constructors. We already know you've won the drivers and you've won the constructors. Give Checo a chance to finish second in the world championship if you were smart. But then Red Bull's never been known for doing that, which is why Colton Herta going there, as much as I'm not a fan of his, is probably not a great move for him because they're probably going to fuck him over. But that's beside the point. We'll see what happens there. In regards to, I mean, there's very little data for Laguna Seca races because they've only ran at Laguna Seca 2 times since for the IndyCar Series. I'm trying to see if anybody was in the race in 2004 that's in this race this weekend. I know what Bourdais would have been, but no.
Scott Dixon, well, no, he's already
No,
racing
Dixon wasn't in kart. He was in the IRL. Yeah, so there's oh man, Guy Smith was driving. Damn. Ryan Hunter-Ray, no.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so there's only the people that have been running this last. Scott Dixon has run at Laguna Seca though before in 2000 from 2000 to 2002. Elio Castro Neves has experience there as well. I'm trying to see who else. I'm just digging. Yeah, Scott Dixon in 2002 actually finished sixth. Let me go through. He was the only guy that's in the race. He had Dario in 2001. You had Dixon who finished fourth, driving for Pac West. Elio Castroneves finished sixth. And then, wow, Casey Mears was driving. Oh, he took over for Alex Zanardi after his crash. Yeah, so those are the only 2 people that really had the experience prior to the return here a couple of years ago. No, Mamo Gidley finished on the podium. Jesus Christ. In that race when Max Papis won from 25th because of cautions. That's pretty funny. In current results, I mean, just as for instance, just looking at what has happened so far, of course, Colton Herta trying to put himself in a position to win, get himself into Formula One, has qualified on pole the 2 times they've run. This series is run at Laguna Seca, and he's won both races at Laguna Seca. Of the championship drivers for average finish, Josef Newgarden has the best average finish. He has a 7.5 with 2 top 10. Scott Dixon has 1 top 5 and an average finish of 8th. And Will Power has 1 top 5 and an average finish of 14th. So as it stands, in regards to the points, I don't think that would be enough for those 2 guys to overtake Will Power. They're going to have to run better than that. Scott Dixon has over his career run in the top 5 at Laguna, but never won there. Newgarden hasn't had that chance. If Colton Herta is motivated, knowing he's going to Formula One, you figure he's going to play a role. But I guess the real talk for Laguna Seca, Josh, is who's going to win the championship. We could pick winners and all pick a podium. We will, but I think the first thing we have to go over is who's going to win the championship. Is it going to be Will Power finally gets that second title, or is Newgarden or Dixon going to add to their legendary career totals?
Well, I think for me, it's going to be willpower. I have a hard time believing anybody else can come out and win this race or this championship. Uh, yeah, I think willpower has been really good this year. He's been dominant. We've seen a different willpower, a lot calmer than in years past, and I think this is probably his race, his championship to win, to lose. So I think for him, he has a lot of pressure, but I think he's gonna handle this pressure differently than in years past when things would happen and break down and get emotional, get angry. I think this willpower is very calm and very collected. So I think he's gonna win the championship this weekend. Of course, there's always bad luck that could happen. Maybe something happens and gets taken out, and voice of Bob Jenkins. It's going back to 2012 when he wrecked out in California. He's gonna be like, well, it's happened again, and the race that race he got crashed very early on and ended up losing to Ryan Hunter-Reay that year, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think he comes out of Laguna Seca here on Sunday, second championship title for his career in IndyCar. Solidify himself as one of the greatest drivers in this sport with one more title, and go along with all the many poles that he has. So I have a hard time believing anybody else could get it, but it would take a lot, I think, for someone else to win this championship. But I could see a scenario where Josef Newgarden ends up winning the race, but he ends up not winning the championship, and Will Power ends up finishing very close in the podium or within the top five. So that's what I'm thinking this weekend. It's all the pressures on Will Power, and I think we're gonna see just how much growth he's made this season in terms of keeping himself calm.
And who do you see for the podium and wild card possibility for this weekend's race at Laguna Seca?
Well, I think wild card. We'll go with Callum Ilott. Finish the year with a solid top 10 finish for Hunko's team. I liked what he's able to do last weekend, and we'll see what he can do here at Laguna Seca at the end of the year. So would be a good gauge of progress, not only for him as a driver, but also the pace as a team. They're one of the back end cars in IndyCar, but if they can string together a couple of top tens, that would be very encouraging. To be able to end the year like that.
So what about the podium? Like, who do you say to win?
And the podium. For podium, I'm gonna go Newgarden, Power, and then Colton Herta.
Okay, so winner for this race will be for Josh. You're right there. J New goes and gets a sixth win of the season, but Power goes and wins the championship, and then Herta in what might be his final IndyCar race for a little while goes and finishes on the podium. For me, I'm going to pick Scott Dixon. Not because he's done so much that it makes me think that he's going to win this. It's Scott Dixon. Will Power has been the most consistent driver, but he's shown over time that he can't fade Ganassi. Penske's been the best team this year. Penske has been in the lead of this championship in the final race and have had bigger gaps or around this kind of gap. But Scott Dixon has figured it out on the final weekend and done what he's had to do to win this championship. Once he lost the Indianapolis 500, I said that The only way for him to salvage this is if he's going to win a 7 championship. And he's run really, really well, and he's won a race. He tied Mario Andretti. He's one of the greatest drivers ever. That's no doubt. For him to have the mistake that he made at Indianapolis was so rare for a GOAT. He wants this championship. But he also has to qualify well. The only way that this actually comes off, because Laguna Seca is virtually impossible. It's no better than Snoroma. It's just that it's a better looking racetrack. It's a better racetrack in general for Indy cars. Even though there's really like 1.5 passing zones there. Scott Dixon has to have the best qualifying week or run on a road course he's had all year. If he does that, it's a real problem. I'm saying he's going to win this championship. He's going to make up the 20-point gap. He's going to win this championship. He's going to do it by winning this race on Sunday. My podium will be Dixon, Herta, and trying to see here. Dixon, Herta, and Pato O'Ward, because he's free. He can do whatever. Dixon, Herta, Pato O'Ward is your podium. Will Power has issues and loses a championship. Newgarden finishes in the top 10, but it's not enough. Scott Dixon gets the victory. Yeah, I picked David Malukas. He was my rookie pick. He's my wild card selection again this week because he needs to finish ahead of Lundgaard to win Rookie of the Year. And the point is both of these guys are going to be in IndyCar for a long time. Alpine's kind of wishing they had Christian Lundgaard right now because they have an issue with their driver situation. Rahaal's happy because now he has somebody he can build around because he's a legitimate championship contender driving for them before Ganassi probably picks him up. But he won't be picked up for a while because they just signed him back for a few years. I say that David Malukas goes and shows up on this road course and has a top 10 result and is able to fade the Christian Lundgaard and get that Rookie of the Year title, which would be huge for him and Dale Coyne Racing for sure. All right. So last thing before you get into your sim segment, Josh, three races this weekend. They haven't posted the entry list for the Truck Series. They're back this weekend for the first time in a while. They've been off since early August. They're going to have 2 races in a row here and 3 in like 4 weeks. So they're going to be kind of busy here. They're going to run Kansas, then they're going to run next Thursday night at Bristol, and then they'll run at Talladega there for. And this is the end of the first round for their playoff. Actually, the round of 10 this weekend. The points going into this race sees Chandler Smith and Grant Enfinger already in. Zane Smith, John Hunter Nemechek more than likely are going to be in no problem. Ty Majeski, Stuart Friesen are pretty good points-wise. Ben Rhodes as well. The points battle to try to get in if there is no other winners amongst that group. Matt Crafton is 3 points ahead of Carson Hocevar, 6 points ahead of his teammate Christian Eckes to go and make the round of 8. So I'll take the lead on this one for the Kansas Lottery 200 on Friday evening. Trying to go through the results here. They ran at Kansas earlier this year, and Zane Smith dominated. Um, Personally, I think it just makes sense that I pick Zane Smith. He's had a rough start to this playoff. He got the extension with Front Row Motorsports, kept him in the Ford camp. He's gonna make his Daytona 500 debut more than likely in February. He's gonna run in all three major NASCAR series. I think Zane Smith gets that victory and gives himself a little momentum going into this next round, starting at Bristol. Um, my wild card selection for this race at Kansas. I mean, I should just go back to the results from that race, and then I could probably give you something. The wild card selection. I mean, based on the current point standings, the top 6 drivers of that race are now in the playoff. And what is it? 8 of the top 10. So the point is the most of the drivers that were in the playoff made the top 10 in this race earlier this year. The only drivers that weren't Stuart Friesen and Carson Hocevar. So Carson Hocevar is in trouble if it works out that way. He would need to have a miracle in that sense. Uh, the wild card to me would be it's hard because the truck series is pretty awful. Um, hmm, I am stumped. I'm really stumped on this one. I'm gonna pick. You know what? I mean, Derek Kraus. It's everybody but the lottery. But I'm gonna pick Derek Kraus as my wild card for this event on Friday night. He's been close before at different types of racetracks. He is a K&N West champion multiple times, which is why he's here with Bill McAnally's team. They've made many crew chief changes over the years. They finally come around and come through. I probably should have, you know what? Yeah, I have another one in my head, but I'm going to leave it alone. I'll go with Derek Kraus. I'll stay with Derek Kraus. How about you, Josh? What are you looking for for the trucks at Kansas?
Well, I think for me, looking at the other Smith, Chandler Smith, go out and win this race. Currently ranked first in playoff standings, and I think he's been the better of the two KBM cars full time this year, and he's starting to come along now, and really be one of the better drivers in the series. So, I'm expecting. Chandler Smith come out and win this race. I think Zane Smith is a good pick too, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Toyota power here to end this first round in the playoffs. As we go into Kansas, I think for wild card pick, I mean, yeah, it's pretty tough based on what we've been looking at this year, and there's a lot of slim pickings throughout this field. But I guess I'm gonna go pick Matt DiBenedetto to be a wild card. He finished top 10 in this race back in May. He finished in 7th place. He's not in the playoffs right now, so I think he'll be a wild card to watch. I think the mile and a halfs he was good at during his tenure with Wood Brothers Racing, and I think he can bring out some surprise run this weekend for Kansas in the Truck Series. So, yeah, we'll see who gets eliminated here after this race. But looking at the results or the standings going into here, you have Hocevar, Christian Eckes on the outside looking in so far, but things can change. A mile and a half, Crafton's on the edge, but we'll see what happens after this race. But looking forward to seeing Truck Series for the first time in a couple weeks since August 13th. So been a while for trucks here in this season.
Yeah, I figure Hocevar is going to get knocked out, unfortunately. There's been some questionable moves they made when he got hurt. How they handled that situation at Snoroma really, I think, might have been an issue. And then there's probably a couple other races there. But not being able to win, I think, is going to play a role. Maybe they show up. Maybe Ross Chastain races this weekend for them and helps them get into the round of 8, which would probably knock out Matt Crafton. I think the points as they are right now is going to stay. I think the two guys that are out right now, which is Ekis and Carson Osavar, are going to be out, which in turn opens up an opportunity for Carson Osavar to go and maybe have an opportunity to um, go and do a little bit of a I guess a preview or do a job interview with Junior Motorsports since the 9 car is going to be open next year. I think Carson Osavar is one of the main players that could possibly get in that ride. I think Drew Dollar decided he's going to quit because he knows he sucks and people hate him, and he knows he could probably make more money being a shitty salesman or whatever the hell his dad does. Um, so Carson Osavar is in play for that 9 car, and if he can get in it, it could be huge for him and his career, considering what that car has brought up to the Cup Series. You have 3 drivers that are all in the playoffs, one that's a champion, and 2 that are, that have possibilities to be champions at some point in their career if they do the right things, that are all got out of that 9 ride before Gragson took over. So, and Gagson's going to go to the Cup Series as well. So that car has been known to do that. It may not work out in the trucks, but I think Carson Osavar has a good future ahead of him. Okay, let's get into the Xfinity Series here. That stupid face that he made. Jesus, he looks retarded. I mean, he is retarded, but whatever. Kansas Lottery 300. They'll practice and qualify on Friday, run Saturday afternoon at Kansas Speedway. Their one race they have at Kansas this year. Trying to go and bring up the results so far this year in California. When it comes to the 1.5 mile racetracks, it looks like Ty Gibbs is pretty good at those. I mean, yeah, you got Allgaier there, Reddick won at Texas, Barry at Charlotte. That's less than Barry won. Allgaier, Nashville, Road America. Yeah. I mean, I mean, Ty Gibbs. I would say Allgaier is another one. It kind of rolls into where uh, Ty Gibbs, Allgaier, Noah Gragson goes and gets that victory there. Kansas Speedway um, is a more of a wide open track, a little more fuel mileage. I mean, the whole fuel mileage thing has been taken away because of these stupid stages, honestly. Um, but I'll go and make my picks here first for the Xfinity Series race. And in regards to Kansas Speedway, the top drivers in the last 10 races. Yeah, we'll do that. Active drivers only. Yeah. In the last 10 races, yeah, Ty Gibbs won their last fall. And AJ Allmendinger finished third. Reddick is a great track record there. with an average finish of third, but he's probably not going to race in this race. Don Hunter, Austin Hill finished fifth. Interesting. In the one race he ran. And trying to see, Sam Mayer had a top 10 finish. And Daniel Hemrick has an 8.8 finish in 5 races there. So I mean, for me, I'm going to pick Ty Gibbs to win this race on Saturday. AJ Allmendinger goes and gets that regular season title, though, and gets those 15 playoff points, which are going to be huge. Gibbs gets another victory. Allmendinger goes and locks up the regular season title. My wild card pick, I mean, it's not really a wild card pick, but at the end of the day, Sam Mayer has not won a race. So if Sam Mayer goes out there and wins, you know, it'd be huge for him and for Junior Motorsports. He's going to be back next year. He's another Chevy development driver. They've been building. The 8 team, of course, their crew chief is going to become the director of competition, so they're going to need another crew chief, so that'll be interesting. Wonder if they'll slide what's his name from the 9 car over, or if he'll go to the Cup Series. I forget what the hell crew chief is. Is that Luke Lambert? Yeah, I wonder if Luke Lambert will go with Noah Gragson up to the Cup Series at Petty GMS. I figure he would. It would make sense. So then they'll need a whole new team there, and then Bumgardner is going to be the director of competition at Junior Motorsports, taking over Pemberton, who left. But Gibbs wins wild card. Sam Mayer and AJ Allmendinger wins the regular season. What are your thoughts and picks there, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, my thoughts on this race, I think, Justin Allgaier has been pretty solid all year and has been pretty good at the mile and a halfs, I think, and I like your Ty Gibbs pick there. It feels like it's been a while since Ty Gibbs has won a race. Suddenly, even though he has the most wins in this series, it's almost like he's an afterthought because the success between the 7 and the 9 and even the 8 car this year from Junior Motorsports. But I'm gonna go the other way and pick Allgaier to go win this race and put himself in position for the playoff points. It would be behind. It'd be behind Ty Gibbs and Noah Gragson and break a tie with Allmendinger in terms of wins and potentially playoff seeding as we go to the start of this NASCAR Xfinity playoffs. And you took my wild card pick. I was thinking about Sam Mayer as a wild card, but you took it from me. But that's all right. At least one of us picked him as a wild card. So I'll go with him. With the guy right below him in the standings, Daniel Hemrick, of course, last year's champion, but
you could pick him too. But I figure I was looking at Hemrick because he's one of my guys.
Well, I mean, I don't want to pick the same guy, but for this, but
it's a good hedge. Yeah. I was thinking about Hemrick, and I would have left him out, because I guess we're on the same wavelength that way, so it makes sense. I think it makes sense, but give your thoughts on Hemrick. I have a couple thoughts on him too.
Yeah, I mean, Hemrick's been struggling this year overall. He's had a couple stage wins, but hasn't really done too much in the series.
I was at Daytona when he qualified on pole. He won both stages, the first 2 stages at Daytona from pole. He has not done shit since February.
Oh yeah, like literally, like he went and won the Xfinity Series title last season, getting into the door of Austin Cindric on the last lap in turn 3 and 4, and he basically was like, "Yep, GG" after that. So, but I mean, he's a solid driver in terms of being able to not be bad in this series, but feels like, the people above him, when Riley Herbst is above you and you're the champion, that says a lot. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it's looking like. Although Riley Herbst's credit, he's improved a lot. I feel like this year we've seen him run top 10 quite consistently compared to the past. But yeah, for me this weekend, I'm gonna go with Algar winning the race, and then Hemrick as a wild card. Although uh, I see you here saying that AJ is gonna win the title for the regular season, but we still have two more races left, right? Because they end after Bristol, don't they?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he has a 51-point lead
Oh yeah, and the
entering this
maximum you can
weekend's
get is
race.
60, right? Okay, yeah.
So if he can gain 9 points, I mean, essentially that's stages. If he does a good job, if he goes out and goes and fades all of our picks that we made, let's just say he actually wins on an oval on Saturday, then it's over. Um, he's done the job to earn that. I figure he was going to do it, but whether that lasts over the playoffs is a whole other discussion. I don't think Allgaier can, AJ Allmendinger can fade uh, Gibbs and Junior Motorsports. That's too much because you have all all four drivers at Junior Motorsports are pretty solid, though there are two that are really good, and you have Gibbs. He can't fight three guys against one. That's what he's doing. His two teammates are 11th and 10th and 11th in points, and one of them's the defending series champion. And I love Daniel Hemrick. He's one of the greatest people there is in this sport, and he needed that win to validate his career and for all that himself and also his wife went through getting railroaded out of the sport. Um, Hemrick, one of his more mediocre performances in the Cup Series this past weekend at Darlington, too. He's a one and done in the playoff at the rate that things are going if he gets in. If somebody backdoors a win on fuel mileage, if like Anthony Alfredo or something backdoors a win on fuel mileage or has fresh tires late, it wins a race, or Jeremy Clements or whatever. I mean, Bristol's a cluster. You could get knocked out. That's a 250 lap race. You can get knocked out of that deal and you can lose a ton of points. So Hemrick has to show up here this weekend and make something happen. All right,
Yeah.
last race before we get into the sim segment is the race at Kansas Hollywood Casino 400, where BZF owns that shithole casino. I'm not sure who's going to be in the race, as because they haven't. All the entry lists get posted on Tuesday, so we don't get to go over that. Josh, you are first. You get that opportunity. Um, in regards to who do you see at Kansas getting this victory? I mean, just going back to the results from earlier this year, when they ran at Kansas earlier, Kurt Busch won this race in the 45 car. The Toyotas were dominant. Christopher Bell won the pole for this race, but Kurt Busch led the most laps and won. Kyle Larson finished second, Kyle Busch third, Denny Hamlin fourth, Christopher Bell fifth. 5 Toyotas in the top 6. Ross Chastain was 7th, Bell 5th, Truex 6th. Bowman was 9th, Bubba Wallace was 10th. He's in this playoff with the 45 car. Cindric finished 11th, Blaney 12th, Dillon 13th, Kevin Harvick 15th, Byron 16th. He led 25 laps. Logano finished 17th after starting 34th. I'm trying to go and scroll through here. Amongst the playoff drivers, Briscoe finished 24th. Chase Elliott scored stage points in both stages, led 10 laps, but only finished 29th. Tyler Reddick scored stage points in stage 1, but finished 30th. Eric Jones coming off of his victory at Darlington, he only finished 32nd in this race. Daniel Suarez finished 33rd. He had issues in this race back in May. So with that, and after everything that went on yesterday, we're in a place right now where this Cup Series battle is going to go down to the wire because it's so wide open, Josh. But the guy that won this race in May is not here. He may not be here for a while. He may not be back until February. Maybe he's not going to be back at all. Way things are lining up, I'm starting to assume that's what's going to happen. With all the hedging that's going to go on, there's with rumors, there's certain things that could happen to where he might be back, but I think Kurt's done, and it'd be unfortunate. But this will probably be his last win. He won in a Jordan Brand Toyota. It was a Toyota benefit in May. There were certain races this year where Toyota's dominated. Do you think it's a Toyota benefit again? Or are we looking at a little more balance? Are we looking at the Chevys coming back to the forefront? Or are we going to see Ford finally do something at a racetrack where they've done well at in the past with like Penske and even Kevin Harvick and Stuart Haas over time?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a Toyota domination like it was back in the spring, but I think here, very end of the summer here, I'm gonna, I think the second place guy from that race, Kyle Larson, I think he can come out and win this race. He had a chance to win back in the spring, and I feel like they're still good on mile and a halfs, the Hendrick program as a whole. So I'm a pick Kyle Larson win this race on Sunday. I feel like mile and a halfs this year they've been good, and they've had chances to win this one back in the spring, and then look at the 600 back in May. They, both those mile and a half tracks that stand out to me that they had chances to win but didn't win the race. And he finally got a second win at Watkins Glen, so I think he can add a third one and then lock himself into the next round by taking the W here this weekend for Kyle Larson. I think for the rest of the playoff field, I think this will be a rebound for Chase Elliott, and I think even Kevin Harvick, this will be a rebound. But some of the other guys like Dylan, Suarez, Chase Briscoe, they might have a bit of a struggle here, trying to get themselves into the next round or get enough points in the next round. So we'll have to see what happens. But I think for me as a wild card, I'm gonna go with Bubba Wallace as a wild card. Even though they are in the owners championship. Bubba finished in 10th place back in the spring. He probably should have finished better than that, but I think they had issues with their pit crew back in that race. I think they had like a top 5 car there, and I think up to that
Issues
point,
in qualifying too after practicing number 1.
yeah. So that too, and I think Bubba has a chance to go out and get another top 10 finish for the 45 team, maybe even a top 5. So, and I think they'll rely on their notes from the spring, as a company, and I think they'll be able to make a little bit of noise in the top running in the top 10 this weekend. So that's what I've got for this weekend, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, the points are going to be interesting to look at going into Bristol, which is always a difficult race. The Bristol Light Race is always one of the more intriguing races, and now instead of being in its August slot where it was for so many years and like traditional, now it's a cutoff race in the playoffs in the middle of college football season, which is great. Yeah, I mean, I your picks are good for sure. I want to go and try to bring up the yeah, I don't want to do that. Recent results at Kansas Speedway before I make a decision on my picks. Um, in regards to my picks, you pick Kyle Larson. He's pretty good, and Bubba Walls, who had a great run there uh, in the spring. I'm gonna go and pick Martin Truex Jr. So I'm gonna say that two non-championship competitors are gonna win the first two races, which means that the points are in play going into Bristol. Um, there's nobody locked in at theoretically. I mean, there will be people that are locked in, I believe, if you score enough points. You have to just score essentially 50, I think. I mean, 60 is the maximum you can score in a race, but if you're six, so a few people are going to be in a position to lock in, I think. I think Joey Logano will score enough points to get himself in based on the current points. You look at him and William. Yeah, I think Joey Logano will lock in, no problem, and then the rest of them. It's better for the playoff, honestly, if Martin Truex wins or Ryan Blaney wins. Even well, Ryan Blaney wins, he's in the playoffs, so that's no. So I'm saying Martin Truex wins this race on Sunday. Uh, my wild card choice for this one. Ugh. My wild card's Brad Keselowski. He's won there at Kansas before, and he had a great run at Darlington on Sunday. The six team seems to have turned the corner, and maybe it's at the expense of Christopher Buescher, but it is his team. So um, I'm picking Truex. I'm picking Brad Keselowski as a wild card uh, to for Kansas Speedway this coming weekend. Both of them are former winners at this racetrack. We'll see what happens with those picks, but I think the championship battle will be interesting as we go along, and we'll talk about it here on episode 134 next week. With that, let's give the floor to you, Josh, for the sim segment. A lot of things going on, not only in iRacing with Formula 1 22, they have the new Formula 1 manager game. There's other games going on, upgrades with certain games and certain tracks being added. So, what is going on your end in regards to the sim side?
Yeah, I think for me, this week is between it's the end of season 3 on iRacing, and now we're getting into season 4. So they've added new stuff, new content, and it's week 13. So it's going to be the week where nothing counts and you can do anything you want. I think this week I'll probably be looking at the Ferrari GT3. Uh, you know, running at Spa. That's tomorrow night. They change tracks every night. Tonight was the 24 Hours of Le Mans track. Well, actually, no, that's tomorrow. It starts the Le Mans track, and then Wednesday is Spa, and then Road America at the end of the week. I think on the 12th they'll run that. So that might be something to look at. 13th week ridiculousness. I think that's where everybody's running. They've got the next gen Cup cars along with the Dallara IR18 and the Arca Menard's Chevrolet Impala. So that's the old Xfinity car from 2010 and prior, running at Talladega. That runs today and I think tomorrow. It's a 15 lap event, so running the next gens with the Dallara IR18, that might actually be interesting and very ridiculous. And then they run the rest of the schedule for that is Daytona Oval, Iowa Speedway Oval, Indy Road Course, Talladega, Daytona, and then Indy Oval next week. So again, none of these races actually count. They're all for fun in between season releases for iRacing, but it's gonna be crazy running an IndyCar along the same race as a NASCAR Cup car. So gonna be a wild one there. Then probably another series I'll look at is for week 13 is the MX5 Mazda Cup 13th week. They run at Laguna Seca, Oldham Park, Tsukuba Circuit, Oldham Park, Lime Rock Park, Okayama full circuit or international circuit, the full course, and then Summit Point Raceway. So those are some of the races I'm gonna be looking at. Definitely gonna try to run IndyCar and NASCAR at the same time at one of those super speedways. That should be incredibly wild because we're gonna be going. The Indy car is going to be going 240, and then the Cup car is going to be trying to stay in a line and ranging from 185 to 200 at points. So that's going to be crazy to see. So I definitely have to stream that one if I do that because I've never done anything like that before on iRacing. And then as far as the news side, I know they, of course, season 4, so they've got new releases this week or this season. They got the Porsche Mission R. I think that's the new car that's going to be released. Motorsport Arena Oschler Sleben. I don't know how to say that, but that's a German track. That's going to be released.
Sleben, I think, is how it is. I think, yeah.
Yeah. So that's released this week. Free base content for season 4, the Rudskogen Motor Center. I think that's another open wheel car. Norway. Actually, it's a racetrack, so it's a Norwegian racetrack in Norway. That should be interesting to play as a free to play base content. So we'll see what happens there. If any of the road series that I've run can race on that track, might be an interesting track there. But yeah, I played a little bit of F1 22 this season or this weekend, so might try to stream that if I can figure out how to do it on PlayStation. Figure that out. You talked about F1 Manager coming out. I have not downloaded that yet. Maybe I might download it and then try to imitate Ferrari strategies. See how bad is it to be a Formula One strategy decision maker. Because I feel like if somebody like me can determine the strategy for Ferrari, then or for any team, then it shouldn't be that hard for Ferrari, and maybe they need to reconsider who their guys are for strategy making and all that stuff, because they clearly have found every way to lose this year in Formula One. But we'll see. Although I do need to, I think it's become to a point where I need to find new space on my hard drive for the PlayStation because I'm out of space now after downloading a bunch of other games. Formula 122. Madden 23 and some other games that I've got that I play with my other friends. But we'll see if I can do that. And then PC side, I'm also running out of space because got all the recordings from this show stored on my hard drive, and I need to go buy a new hard drive because I've run out of space now. So still have enough room for the next couple of recordings, but it's got to happen sooner than later because got to be able to have space on this thing, or I might have to take on my old hard drives and format it so I can put all the stuff on our show on that and store it there. So, or do cloud storage or something there. So I'll have to figure that out. But I'll have to figure that out as we continue to produce these shows, which actually leads us into transition into the end, of course, with on my end, the iRacing stuff as I talk about always gonna be Twitch TV/usailor2, so you can find me whenever I stream and whenever I do anything on iRacing. You can watch there and watch me do my thing on there. So follow me there, Twitch TV/usailor2, and then my Twitter account, of course, where I have all my takes, all my opinions on everything that happened in NASCAR this weekend, Formula One, IndyCar, all that stuff. Go on there at JP Huffine. Again, at JP Huffine, where you can find all my Twitter content and opinions on anything that I'm interested in. And then, of course, our page here, the Grip Strip Podcast, can be found on YouTube. You can go on there, Grip Strip Podcast on YouTube, subscribe, and get our videos. You can watch the video version of this show and see our interviews with Joe Pacero, Ralph Shaheen, and many other people that we've had on this show since we started recording. Go on there and see our content on the YouTube side and subscribe, and we'll have our remaining episodes from last week up there soon. Just had busy weekend, so wasn't able to get those up there, but we'll get up there soon. And of course, this one that we're recording right now will be up there soon. So go follow us on the YouTube side and subscribe, give a comment, like our videos, and support the page. So yeah, that's it for me, Phil. I'll leave you to do the rest of the close.
All right. Yeah, thanks, brother. I know that we should go and follow you on your Twitch feed because you're great at what you do behind the wheel. You're great at what you do here as a co-host of the GSP. So let's support Josh in his endeavors for sure. For us, we're almost at 100 followers on our Twitter feed. It's taken a while, but we're almost at 100 followers. I don't know how many of them are legitimate. Who cares? We haven't bought any.
I am pretty sure they're all fake. Not all of them, but
no, they're not all of them, but the vast majority of them. But I don't care. I just want 100. So we're close to that. So hoping we can get to 100 followers, and here by the end of this year, I figure we'll be able to end of the racing season. We'll be able to get that. We're on basically anywhere the Gripster Podcast is. Anywhere you can find podcasts on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Verbal, our YouTube page at Gripster Podcast, where we post the videos. I have the pinned tweet from episode 125 recently. I don't know. I guess I didn't pin anything elsewhere, but we're at episode 131, right, or 133 right now, so we'll try to get that out here prior to the weekend starting. We'll be back. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. Find me at Philip G. Matthew 28 on Instagram. PhilipGMatthew.com. The show was posted over there. It's my WordPress page. Bowling season is starting, so I'll be busy with that twice a week. We'll also have football. We'll have motorsports. We're going to be busy right now, running out the end of this season here this next 3 months. So a lot to talk about. We'll be back next week for episode 134 of the Grifter Podcast, covering IndyCar's season finale. We'll talk about NASCAR at Kansas. We'll talk about the Italian Grand Prix in Formula One and everything else in the world of motorsports and sports, football, week one, our fantasy teams. How do they look? We'll talk about all that here on the Gripster Podcast next week. So tune in. Thanks as always for listening to us. Give us a like, subscribe, do the whole bit. Tell your friends about us. Go and listen to us during your workday. You can get all the information you need in one spot, and you're going to get the real information from us. You're not going to get it. There's no imposters. There's no fraudulent shit here. This is real talk, and it's real fandom, and it's real people. So with that, for Josh, I'm Phil. We'll be back next week for the Gripster Podcast, episode 134. Take care, God bless, and goodbye.